Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good to see you. So I'll just take a sip of water before we get started. So it's kind of came quickly, but we're kind of at the end of the year, right? Christmas is coming up. Vicky went into Super Value on the way to church, and she came out and she was like, "Oh my gosh, already playing Christmas songs." Like a little annoyed because it's a little too early, but I don't know. I think it's never too early for some Christmas spirit. So I'm looking forward to it anyway. It's a good time of the year to kind of wind down and reflect, and we're stuck inside a bit more with the lovely weather we tend to get. It means we have more time with each other indoors. But yeah, I want to share a bit of just a little bit of a personal story for today's service. For those of you that don't know, last weekend I was in my birth city of Seattle, Washington. I was there because my grandmother, at 98 years old, had passed away in September. And her husband had passed away also at 98 years old, the year before. And so they didn't want a funeral or anything. So instead, the family came together last Saturday, and we had kind of a celebration of life. So it was quite nice because it's been 3.5 years since I've been back to the States and seen some of my siblings came to visit me, but it was 3.5 years since we were all together. So my two sisters and my brother, younger sister's husband, and the three nieces kind of all came Friday night. So we had a nice dinner late. It was a sushi shop bar that was open till 1 a.m. So we all went there together and just had a nice kind of family evening. And then the next day, my cousins were there. I have 4 cousins from my mom's side and my aunt. And it was very nice because not all of them could make it. 3 out of 4 could come. The other one lives in Europe, actually. But since I had seen them, there were 3 more great grandkids. So my aunt had 3 more grandkids. Right? So, yeah, so my second oldest cousin had 2, and then the third cousin had a very young one. So there were 3 little kids running around under the age of 3. So it's quite nice. It's kind of a nice atmosphere. Basically, we just sat around and we were just talking to each other and catching up, kind of discussing about genealogy. My sister had come prepared with my grandma's ancestors because both my mom and dad are about 3rd or 4th generation Americans, but my grandma is half Swedish, half German. So her parents, they'd always married within their immigrant communities, right? So my mom's Swedish mother they always married Swedes, and my mom's German father always married Germans, right? Even though they came about 3 or 4 generations ago. And what was interesting is my grandmother's maternal side had ancestors in Colorado, but they'd moved from Colorado to Seattle. So my sisters had gone and visited my great grandmother's house and property and kind of land, right? So so it was a very kind of lineage, family focused conversation. Some of my grandma and grandpa's cousins were there, and then my mom's cousins were there. So it's that kind of extended family. Maybe a total of about 20 people just chatting and catching up and kind of understanding our connections. And then after that, then just the kind of closer family. So my aunt's family and our family, we had a nice dinner together, right? And that was kind of the whole day, right? So just kind of after dinner, we walked on the beach, right? And also near that beach and near where we were eating was actually where my mom was born, just around the corner. And my cousins pointed out the apartment was still there. We didn't go into it or up to it, but I could see it in the distance. It was a nice little white house. That's where my mom was born, and my grandparents lived with her for a year. when my grandfather got his job and moved out of the city. So, um, so it was very interesting. And it was a very kind of, it just felt very natural, kind of being with family. We kind of didn't want to separate, right? Kind of we had to leave and people were still talking. And it's just like, I almost felt bad because I was the one trying to get everyone to go. And then my sisters and my cousins just kept talking and, it was very hard to separate us, right? It was just a very nice feeling. And, it's a bit unfortunate because we lived on opposite coasts of the US that we never really got to know my mom's side of the family so much, right? Even my grandparents, maybe I'd seen, like I could count on my two hands how many times I've seen them, right? And my cousins, I think this was the third time or fourth time, right? So it's, but it's still interesting how we're still can meet and just have kind of, it's like when you meet an old friend, right? There's always that connection, there's always the shared understanding, shared experience. Um, and the other thing is, speaking of the kids, right? There's this thing I do when especially when I see grandkids, is I do this kind of math in my head around um, kind of multiplication of lineage. So obviously, when you're a couple, if you have three kids, you're growing, right? The total number of people. But then I was thinking from grandparents, you'd kind of divide that in half, right? So it's like if you have, my parents have 9 grandkids, right? So that's like 4.5 times. So they've kind of multiplied themselves 2 times, right? So I was thinking, okay, on my Aunt Jan's side, well, she's gotten to 4 grandkids now. So then it's like even, right? It's because you cut it in half. But I was thinking about my great grandparents. They have 13 great grandkids. You divide it in four, it's like 3.25, right? It's not really a contest. It's just something something I kind of notice with grandkids because I think it's very tied to the importance of lineage, right? Because when we look at the kind of trends in modern society, right, the the birth rates are incredibly low in every developed country, right? Ireland used to be the highest in Europe when I first moved here. It was at 2.0, so still below like enough to replace the population. And since then, it's literally tanked. It's like 1.5, 1.4, right? I went up, I was like, oh, Ireland does well. And it's a very family focused country. It kind of keeps its population replacement rates. And then I went back and checked on it and basically went like this, right? Since I came to Ireland, right? So it shows that I think what it really shows is the culture shift, right? And especially it's most obvious in Korea and Japan. Korea, I think, broke the record for the lowest at like less than 1. Um, and so in a way, it's kind of an opportunity, right? Maybe it's how God's providence really evolves and works because if the members in Korea and Japan are very family focused, aren't becoming materialistic and having kids. I think one of the most obvious impacts of materialism is people have less kids. I just think it's almost proven over the last 30, 40 years, right? And so one of the powerful influences of religious life and all the religious kind of disciplines is it really gets people to focus on the characters that make strong families, right? Being good husbands, being good fathers, right? Being able to take care of each other, right? Self-discipline is kind of a key element of any successful relationship, right? And then especially if you become a parent, it becomes such a critical element of being able to raise children. Right? So it's when I kind of look at our movement and look at the future and look at kind of the trends, the communities, the religions that really are able to focus on families, nurture families, like center on family values, obviously are the ones that will succeed over time. Right? And if you think about a place like Korea, yes, the population is tanking, the birth rate is tanking, and so what's left? What's left are the people that are having kids, right? That do value families, that do value family structures. And so then that'll recover naturally, right? But when it recovers, there's a cultural shift, right? And so I think it's actually a really powerful opportunity, and especially for Korea in our movement. It's not just the Koreans in the movement, but we really, through kind of Cheongpyeong, we're having this kind of also international city kind of feel where we're bringing other people in, right? And so it's not just the Korean families in our movement, but it's also a lot of Albanian families, for example, and Russian families and Filipino families move to Korea and want to learn Korean and want to become part of the Korean culture. So I think I'm just very optimistic in the future that our movement in Korea will be the one that has a higher and higher influence because it'll be where there's actually growth, where there's actually family structure, family focus. Right? So anyway, it's just something I was thinking, obviously thinking a lot because I was with my family, right? And we were talking about lineage and we were seeing, seeing grandkids and great grandkids, right? And I was meeting kind of like, what are they, second cousins? Maybe cousins, my mom's cousins, right? So my mom's cousins, I think, and then my grandparents' cousins, great cousins. Anyway, I don't know. I don't even know in English how we define these relationships. But you could kind of see that like my grandparents really were leaving a legacy behind. And then even more interesting looking even further back into my own lineage. Um, so after I was in Seattle that Sunday night, my siblings went home and I went to San Francisco because I was able to tie it into a work trip. And so my flights could be paid by my company. But it's very practical. But even when I went to San Francisco, I was meeting an old friend of mine, and he's become the CEO of a company, a startup. And I hadn't seen him in about 13 years. So we used to work together in Google. We actually started in Google in the same time. It's called the same nuclear group. It's kind of a silly term, but that's what we call it. New Googler. But anyway. So we kind of kept in touch, and I, followed him on Facebook and stuff. And he had had two kids at the time. So when I came to the house, I haven't seen this guy in 13 years, basically. I come to the house, his oldest son answers the door and then like runs away. And then his daughter's hiding somewhere, so I have to go find her, right? So I'm like entering this house as almost like part of the family, right? And it was such a heartwarming experience because again, it's like with old friends, right? You just somehow start where you left off, but then things have changed and you kind of catch up. And it just very much felt like I was actually part of the family. Like I was visiting my brother or my sister, right? And I stayed for 3 hours. They made a really nice dinner. We just kind of sat around and talked, and we mostly talked about family, like raising kids and how it is to kind of balance everything. Their kids are a little younger than mine, 6.5 and 4, right? But they're just really happy, just running around the house and just kind of, playing with them a bit. Um, kind of very much fit into this theme, being family focused, right? And I just felt kind of a part of the family for those 3 hours, right? It was very nice. Um, they also had a beautiful dog that I was just kind of scratching the whole time. Just kept coming back to me because I was obviously giving it too much attention. It was just, again, if you can imagine, it was just really like, yeah, it's just kind of almost a picture perfect kind of evening, right? It was very, um, yeah, it was almost a continuation of how I was feeling being kind of with my own family. And then the next day, it was a bit more. Um, it was very similar, but it was different because I had wanted to catch up with another friend from Google that I hadn't seen in a while that also lived in San Francisco. But when I tried to look him up, he had passed away a year and a half ago. very young, and I was kind of shocked. Um, it was just kind of I still don't even know why, but it was just um, whatever the reason. Me and Vicky had been to his wedding in America. I visited him once before. The last time I was in San Francisco. I don't even know why anymore, but it was probably 6 years ago. I was in San Francisco randomly, and I think it was with my brother. I was visiting my brother, and then we drove to San Francisco because he was in Sacramento. And they had a they have an 8-year-old son, right? So it was just kind of caught me by surprise and really shocked me. And I remember I was kind of crying the day I found out, right? And I just reached out to his wife, and said, "Look, um, I'm so sorry. I know it's not and everyone kind of deals with grief differently. But if you'd like to meet, I'd like to meet you and your son and just spend some time together, right?" And she was very happy, actually. She was very happy to meet and talk about her husband. And she said, "I really want my son to meet his father's friends, right? And just to kind of hear stories and know what kind of person he was." So that was kind of my whole afternoon. We had lunch together, and then we just spent the whole afternoon together. And again, I just felt like I was an uncle, kind of taking care of, you know, being part of this family, taking care of the boy. We just we went for ice cream. He wanted to play Exploding Kittens because they had bought this game. They had played it. So I showed him how to play Exploding Kittens. And then while we were having lunch, there was poker on the TV. It was like some poker tournament. So he wanted to learn how to play poker. So I taught how to play poker with Skittles. No. He was a little too young for poker at 8, but it was just kind of fun. It was just we were just gambling with Skittles and learning the rules, right? And it was just again, it was just this amazingly kind of um just feeling part of this family, right? And just kind of being part of this feeling. Um, Even though they were going through this incredibly tough time, the the mom was really like explaining how much support she had from her community, right? And how much it made a difference and how it helped her kind of get through. And um, she wasn't sure what she was going to do next or what the future would hold, but she was just just very grateful for everyone who helped, and also um, a lot of her husband's friends had come and visited, and it really meant a lot to her. She felt it really helped to not just her, but for her son to feel cared for and kind of, yeah, to have uncles and extended family, right? Because actually, she only has one sister, and her husband only, I think, has one brother, right, who lives in Europe. So it was, um, the community is really able to step in, help take care in these kind of difficult situations. And I had experienced that myself, of course, with um, with my own brother-in-law passing, and how much the community helped my sister and helped support her through that time. Um, so there was a very kind of clear theme of my trip, which was really kind of centered around death and life, but more than life, really around lineage, right? And the value and the importance of that, um, kind of almost physically being able to see the impact of lineage, right? And how valuable it is, and how much impact it has. And also not just lineage in terms of like the kids themselves, but the support network around them to make it possible, right? The extended family, the community that you're part of, to kind of make it possible for you to raise your family and to go through very difficult circumstances, right? So so on the plane ride home, I do what I try to do every couple years. I wrote my will. It's a good way. I write out a will. If I die, then this person gets my toys, and so it's a habit I developed as kind of it's just kind of my way of dealing with, I guess, dealing with death, or kind of being comfortable with you know my mortality, right? But like in most cases, it's pretty obvious. If I die, my wife gets everything. So there's not a real will to write, so to speak. So it ends up becoming like a letter. I kind of am writing a goodbye letter to everyone I know and love and care about. It's very cathartic. I cry once or twice, and then and then I forget about it for a couple of years and try it again, right? Um, so obviously, kind of it was, um, yeah, it kind of fit into the theme of the trip, right? It was a very kind of I was very reflective and really thinking about the things that mattered most and the things that are most important to me and the things I feel I should really be focusing on. And being on a plane is always a good chance to think about what if I die all of a sudden, which is which I think about when there's too much turbulence, right? It's just a bit sharing a little bit of my internal anxieties with everyone, but that's just how my mind works. Um, but in general, I try to feel comfortable with the life I've lived, right? And that that if the plane did go down or if anything happened all of a sudden, that I've that I'm happy with what I've done and what exists. Right? Obviously, I'm not trying to die. Obviously, I want to live as long as possible. Love to see some grandkids, maybe some great grandkids, right? I can lose 20 pounds. I might live an extra 5 or 10 years. But so I am trying to prioritize those things, right? To be healthy. And that's the area of my life I do feel I've been weak in. I kind of regret, and I'm trying to fix that now. But I just wanted to share this kind of personal story because for me, I feel it really highlights the core of our purpose, right? Of kind of God's will, which is really um, to really have a clear understanding of life and death and of lineage, right? And that's what's, I think, the fear of death or the way people view death is something that actually causes so much suffering, right? Um, and it's always a part of our faith and a part of our teaching around spirit world is something that always inspires me, always gives me so much kind of hope and kind of clarity and direction, right? But then also the element of lineage, I think, is it's so missing in the modern world, right? It's kind of the failure of Christianity, I would say, is that it hasn't Christians have been family focused because they've had such deep moral understanding around forgiveness and around being centered on a higher purpose. And that's made their marriages stronger. It's made their ability to raise families stronger. But they haven't really understood lineage as almost like a theological concept, right? They haven't really understood the importance of family as God's will because it's almost been a side in Christian theology, right? Christian theology is always kind of about individual salvation, and it really ends up becoming their weakness. And so I think why I've always felt that our faith, the principle, the way we try to live our lives, the importance of the blessing in everything we're doing is really the kind of deeper understanding of the purpose of life and the value of life. This critical element of lineage, which sometimes is very hard to understand or hard to put into practice because it's actually such a long-term thing, right? And just when I was home and kind of having this celebration of life for my grandparents, I could almost physically see it, right? In all the great grandchildren that were there. Um, um, you can almost physically see the importance of lineage and the impact of lineage. And it was really kind of, for me, just very inspiring, right? I know today's service is much more a personal story. It's just my own kind of reflections and thoughts. I don't know how directly applicable or practical it is for everyone, but I hope there's something in what I said today that you can reflect on, think about, that helps you in your own life of faith, building your own lineage and legacy. And on that note, I will offer a prayer. Thank you very much. 사랑 많으신 하늘 부모, our beloved and precious Heavenly Parent, as we gather here together today as brothers and sisters of our Irish community, we're very grateful for the love and support we have from each other. We know that we're here because of factors way outside our own control. Even before we were born, so much love and preparation was given to welcome us into this world. From the moment we were born, our lives were so completely dependent on other people. And as we grow and we build our own sense of self and self-worth and confidence, it's easy for us to sometimes forget that we're more than just individuals, more than just our individual selves, alone in the world, but that we really are part of a greater network of people who love us, who care for us, who want to be part of our lives, and who want to support us. And we just want to take the time today to really have a grateful heart for all that we have, all the little kindnesses that we might not even see or understand. So I just want to thank you today. Thank you that we're here. Thank you that we're together in this room to share and to spend time together, to sing together, to eat together. And I pray that despite all our shortcomings and our own fallen natures, we can keep striving to figure it out, keep striving to understand ourselves and others, and you as our Heavenly Parent more deeply, and that our lives can be enriched and we can become people who find true contentment in heaven. I report this on behalf of brothers and sisters here and in my name, Youngil, Eli Lo, Blessed Central Family. Attendance to the Holy Mother on Bachi.